Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Business Observer, Sarasota Manatee Editor Greer Ferguson. And thanks again for joining us for the second official gathering of the Business Observer's Open Book Club. So thanks for being with us this afternoon. We appreciate you joining us. So joining us this afternoon as well are several members of the Observer Media Group team, and that includes editor, CEO, and owner Matt Walsh, publisher Emily Walsh, executive editor Kat Hughes, managing editor Mark Gordon, commercial real estate editor Kevin McQuaid, Tampa Bay editor Brian Hartz, and director of marketing Robin Langton. So thank you all for joining us and all of your work to make this event possible. And thanks to everyone else who has joined us as well. So books about leadership and business have been important to a lot of us. And with this book club, we're exploring some of those best books, our favorite books about business and leadership through discussions led by our area's top business people and community members. Today, as you know, we're discussing Start With Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action by Simon Sinek with Heather Williams, who I'll introduce in a couple of minutes. After that introduction, we'll start a roughly hour-long discussion of the book, and feel free to chime in during that period with any thoughts or questions you might have after Heather shares a little bit about why Start With Why has meant something to her. And one quick housekeeping note, we'll be recording this event and making it available to all of you later if you'd like to refer back to it. And before we get started, I'd just like everyone to ask everyone to mute your microphones if you haven't done that already, if you don't mind. And then if you have a comment or a question, you can unmute yourself later. And your name is possibly showing up as our very own Robin Langton. So if it is, if you wouldn't mind changing your name, renaming yourself by hovering over your face, clicking on the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner and selecting rename. And please also mark your calendars for our next book club event on November 4th from 4 to 5 p.m. We'll send out an email with some more details about that in the coming weeks, so please stay tuned. We want to thank our 2 generous sponsors for this book club event. Our sponsors are Kerkering Barberio, Sarasota's premier CPA firm, providing a variety of tax, audit, and accounting services to businesses and individuals. And Williams Parker, attorneys at law, committed to clients, service to community, and devotion to excellence in the practice of law, guiding principles for nearly 100 years. Thank you. And we're so pleased to have Heather Williams lead our discussion today. Heather is a shareholder at Kerkering Barberio, and she's also a former board chairwoman of the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance and a member of the Business Observer's 40 Under 40 class of 2018. So thanks again so much for being with us today, Heather, and leading our discussion. Would you kick it off for us?
All right. Hello, everyone. I am very excited to be here and share this book together. When we were prepping for this today, we kind of said, you know, if we were at the Observer as a plan, of course, most of us would probably have a cocktail in our hand. We'd be floating around. We'd be networking. So we want to start off with taking 2 minutes, just a quick 2 minutes, and let everyone have an opportunity to introduce themselves. And we're going to do this in the breakout rooms. So once you get there, it's going to go really fast. So we're going to have time for you to share your name, your company, your title. But don't worry, you're going to see them again later in this session. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and break out, and then we'll be right back in 2 minutes. All right. So I think the fitting place to start is just like a 35,000-foot view of this book. However, if you haven't read it, you might have heard or watched the TED Talk. And just in case if you've kind of did any kind of Googling before you got on today, Simon Sinek in April of this year, kind of trying to reinvent himself in this pandemic, has been hosting his own book clubs of this book. So of course I had to watch those, and so I hope to kind of bring some of that conversation in later if we have time. So the first polling question I want to ask everyone is, have you listened or watched the third most of all time Simon's TED Talk? So while we're waiting for the results there, if you haven't read it, not a big deal. Happy to have you here today. Hopefully we can share and kind of dive into some of these topics and kind of, maybe you'll be ready to read it after this. So in the book, Start With Why, how do great leaders inspire everyone to take action? He presents the idea that great leaders inspire others. Let's see here. They inspire others by putting the why, the purpose. They present before the how, the process, or the what. So let's share these results really quick because it's distracting. Before they share the what, the product. So here's the results. So almost half of us have heard this TED Talk. All right. So in the Start With Why, Simon shares his philosophies on how leadership can easily be used in any professional or personal situation that calls for inspiration and influence. So this book, of course, is about purpose and leadership. And I think that's why we're all here today. And I think everyone on this Zoom can relate to that. He also states that this book is not a fix, but it's a guide to help us focus on things that work. And so I was introduced to this concept, to the TED Talk actually. Rob Lane had us watch it in a partners meeting back in July of 2017. And that really then opened my eyes to kind of looking back to why. Fast forward, a few years later, finding success and building your business, it takes just a lot more than what we do. Maybe what you think I do is complete a tax return. But I really go back to staying focused on my why. So as you might have guessed, I do a lot of things, and to balance it all, I really need to focus on that. And if I lead every decision from my why, I will know fast if it's something I should be doing or not be doing. And as you can see, I tend to be a yes person. So if I really keep my focus on the why, that's really going to help me. So I am going to share with you my why. And I believe that if you really kind of get into this book, you'll see that it's kind of applies in all areas. So my why is to be a trusted advisor for the right clients and inspiring my team. I want to be a balanced mom and wife, and I would always say my 3 kiddos are my why, and I want to bring the best version of me. So that's kind of my why. So now it's your turn. I'd like to take a few minutes, and for those of you who have thought about your why, we can break now, but actually let me go a little bit more into this book, and then we can kind of just talk about it a little bit more. So you've probably heard this concept, which is the core concept behind his platform is the idea that people do not buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So really what's in that why? Early in the book, he kind of highlights how, and I think this is true, we all make decisions in life and in business. Sometimes we hire consultants, sometimes we implement systems, anything we can do to kind of get to that desired outcome. But often it's not the systems that fail, it's our ability to maintain them. And so if this rings true for you, I know that I've said I'm out to set to do something, and then 2 weeks later, I'm back to my old habits. So this is why throughout the book, he kind of says over and over and over, start with why. So everything you do has to be about your why, your how, and then your what. So that's where your focus will be. So in his book, he's quoted, our why is the sum of the total of how we are raised in this experiences of who we are. So before we get into the golden circle, I just kind of want to open it up for any discussions or comments just kind of on the high level of the why. Does anyone have any comments to add there, or should I keep going? You can unmute. Don't forget to unmute.
So what was your actual question? I apologize.
Question was just kind of looking at the why. Does anyone have any questions about, explaining kind of just what I went over through. Do you does that connect to you when he's saying focus on your why?
Yeah, but he also talks about occurring patterns, and in my why, it's a recurring pattern. My, I guess, why would be always to help someone move forward and grow their business. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of identifying your why. So no, I think that's a start. So let's look quickly at the PowerPoint I have a screen I want to share. Get to that. Am I good? You guys see this slide?
You're good.
All right, awesome. So if you've read obviously those of you who've read the book or those of you who watched the TED Talk, he kind of talks about the golden circle. So in the magic golden circle, no one part is more important than the other. So if any one of these pieces are missing, you're going to be out of balance. So you have to have super strong whys, hows, to kind of get there. You have to always keep your Simon kind of says, you always have to keep your golden circle in balance with clarity, discipline, and consistency. If you're talking from the words from a company, not just from a personal standpoint, the company must actively remind everyone why the company exists and why it was founded and what it believes. You also need to hold everyone accountable to the values and the guiding principles. So just simply writing something on the wall is not going to be enough. You're going to have to tie bonuses, incentives all around the why, and everything must revolve around the why to make it work. So let's close that. So I thought was pretty interesting in the book, and then we'll kind of go into some discussion, but the why guys, the how guys, and the what guys. So if you go back to who is the why is going to be the CEO, the leader of the company. And obviously they're going to have to be clear with why the company exists and being able to express that to their employees. You know, they're at the top of the system. So they're the leader representing the why. So they have to have the beliefs. Then you come down to the next circle, and it's the how level. It's the C level. It's the executives. Down at this level usually are your senior executives who are inspired by the leader's vision, and they know how to bring it to life. So right now, probably in your companies, you probably can think there's a why person and there's a how person. The senior executives are inspired by the leader, and they know what to do. They know what actions to take to kind of find the route there. And then finally, the next circle, that's your what. That's usually where your employees are sitting. And these are going to be the people in your company who implement the strategy. They're going to be the ones interacting with your company, with your customers. Really, this level is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the majority of the employees sit and where all the tangible stuff happens. So he uses a lot of examples in the book, and one of the examples he uses is Gates. So Bill Gates was a why guy, but if you knew anything about the company, Paul Allen built the company. Another example he used is Walt Disney. He was a why guy. He was a dreamer. He was those whose dreams came true. And thanks to the way his dreams came true is the help of his older brother, Roy, who was the how type. So there has to be a special partnership between the why and the how. All right, so to kind of get you guys going, let's start with a polling question. Are you a why guy, a how guy, a what guy, or a why gal, a how gal, or a what gal?
Good. Everyone vote.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's do this.
So I would think that makes sense in a group with around leadership and purpose. There's definitely going to be a good amount of why people, and then there's definitely hows. And there's probably different times in your career where you might have been a how or a why or a what. So I think that's all valid. So let's kind of talk a little bit about, or share a little bit about the why, the golden circle, how you see the interaction of these, the why and the how guys in your current companies or current experiences.
So if I can, I work with a creative marketing firm, and it's interesting because whenever we bring in a new client, they normally want to start the conversation with the what, but in order for us to help them tell their story in an effective way, we kind of gear them back to the why. And so normally we'll have a conversation with the owner or somebody who founded the company and just start asking about their story. And then from there, we can go back into, communicating the what, but the why is very important for us.
Very good. Thanks, Orlando. Does anyone else use the why at their company as part of their sales, or as part of their culture, I should say?
Absolutely. So my name's Boone Moore. I work with Transamerica Financial Advisors, and in my organization, we have a lot of salespeople. And so in a sales environment, you have a lot of obstacles, and whether real or imagined, that we have to overcome. And if the why is not big enough, then oftentimes you'll get knocked off your horse, so to speak, by seemingly insignificant things. So you have to constantly keep the why in front of them. It's like the carrot that helps motivate folks. And so in my industry and in my company specifically, that's one of my primary functions is to keep the why in front of people.
Very good. Sharon, thank you, Boone. Sharon, were you going to share?
Yeah, I work for Michael Saunders at their Toulon key offices. I'm the managing broker, and it's a question I always use when I'm interviewing people who want to come work with us: is why real estate? Because it's a very, very hard job. It's one of the only jobs that you don't get paid anything till you've done everything, and unless they've got a really strong why, then they're not going to survive the field. And we lose probably out of 10 people after 2 years, only 2 people are actually still in business over the industry. So for me, their why is really important.
Sharon, do you have, when you're interviewing, have you noticed it's hard for people to express their why?
A lot of the time they will say, oh, I like people. Well, that's a great start, but that's not going to actually help you be motivated. So you have to dig deeper, and I think people's why change as their lives change. So for, a younger person just starting out, the why might be more, this is an industry where I can earn a lot of money without a college degree, and I can really build my own business. Whereas for somebody maybe who's got grandkids, it might be, I can move my schedule around so I can be with my grandkids a bit more. So it's really important to know, what drives them. But I've yet to have anybody in an interview ask me what my why is.
Very good. Anyone else?
I want to know what Sharon's why is.
It has changed as I've grown, and my why now is when I go to bed at night, I want to know that I've made the world a little bit better during the day by just helping somebody. And this job makes it so easy to help people every day.
That's great.
So I'm going to just tell one little more story from the book, and then we're going to go into breakouts. I'm giving you the warning. We're going to go back into your breakout rooms and have an opportunity in a smaller group to kind of share your why. And maybe if you don't have your why, it can be, just help you start kind of brainstorming. It's a look back, not a look future. It's not looking into the future. It's not your vision statement. So anyhow, we're going to do that in just a minute. But in this, for those of you who didn't read the book, there is he calls it the Celery Test. And it's a simple way of helping you make decisions. And the great thing about Simon, if you've seen him in the TED Talks, if you've watched his YouTube, And he just tells the best stories. I mean, that's why he's a world-renowned speaker. That's why that's why he's inspiring, of course. That's his why, of course. But anyhow, he has the greatest stories. I really like this story, so I want to make sure I share it with you guys. So with a why clearly stated in any organization, anyone within an organization can make a decision, right? Because they know it as clear as the founder of the organizations know it. The why provides the filter to make all decision making. And this could be, for example, I think Sharon touched on it, in the hiring, when you're making hiring, the partnership strategies, what vendors are you going to use, what partnerships are you going to make, all the tactics that you may go to market with from a business side, or all the tactics used in your personal life. You know, do you get up every morning at 5 a.m. or do you stay up till 2 a.m.? What do you use? So all of those things should pass the Celery Test. So the story he tells is, you're at a dinner party with some very highly accomplished people. And some of them are in the industry, some of them are in your same industry, some of them are in more successful industries. Some of them have provided advice to others with great success. So these are the people you want to have your ears wide open, taking notes, you know, on your iPhone whenever they walk away. So someone comes up to you and says, you know what you need in your organization? You need M&Ms. If you're not using M&Ms today, you're leaving something on the table. And so then, you know, they walk away. So then you're walking around and another person comes over to you and says, you know, Oreo cookies. You know, we've made millions of dollars implementing Oreo cookies in our organization. You've got to do it too. And then someone else comes up to you and says, celery. You've got to get into celery. And finally, another person you bump into, you know what you need? You need rice milk. Data shows all the people these days are drinking rice milk. You should be selling rice milk. So each person in this room, these are metaphors, has told you the way to success. So what are you going to do next? Well, man, you're going to go to the grocery store and you're going to spend a lot of time walking the aisles of the grocery store, and you're going to spend a lot of money because you're going to buy everything they told you to buy. But if you knew your why before you got to the grocery store, you would filter all of your decisions through it, and you would know quickly what you were, for example, what you were going to buy. So if your example was, my why is to only get healthy things for my body, then I would know I'm going to buy rice and celery milk. And it would be that quick. I'd be in and out. So that would be easy. And that's kind of his purpose of using your why. And when you're standing in line with your products in your hand, everyone can see what you believe in. They can see, oh, she must be healthy. She's buying celery and rice milk. And the customer behind you might bump into them and they say, oh, I can see you really care about your health based on what's in your hands. So this example is great. He's saying, this is how you are staying true and focused on your why, what you're doing, and how you're doing it and what you're doing it. Everything you're communicating and put out in the world shows what your why is. So anyhow, I thought that was a great example, and just really something easy to kind of make it make sense and bring it home. So, but I do buy Oreos and M&Ms. So I think now is a great time. We're about halfway through almost to go into our breakout rooms and discuss our individual whys. So, all right. So I am going to start this I want to go into the leadership. So we talked about purpose and why. We've kind of dived down a little bit into the book. So now let's go into his leadership. So one of the quotes that I really thought was a great quote was, working hard for something we don't care about is stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. So I think that's valid. I think if you're going to work every day and you don't love what you do, for the most part, there's things I don't love doing, but I have to do. But for the most part, I love coming to work and I love what I do. Wouldn't be in public accounting for 20 years if I didn't. So you really got to love what you do. So he talks about leadership. He says, leaders, they don't have all the great ideas. They provide support for those who want to contribute. And leaders achieve very little by themselves. They inspire people to come together for the good of the group. And leaders never start with what needs to be done. Leaders start with why we need to do things. Leaders inspire action. So in part 4 of his book, he kind of starts focusing on, you've really got to gather the right people around you. So I think it's, you know, I think part of what I thought we could talk about, some open discussion is, you know, leadership in this current environment, it's really tough, you know. And on some of the other leadership calls I've been on, you know, nobody has known, not all companies know or all professionals know how to lead a team remotely. So this is new to a lot of us. So, so right now we can't just walk down the halls. Well, some of us can, but some of us at KB, we are still, you know, 60 to 80% remote. So I can't just walk down the halls and see my staff, you know. And leaders, they need to care about the human beings, not just about the work that the people are doing. So instead now I need to keep the good practice of pick up the phone. Hey, how are you doing? You know, talk to my team as if they were here. And so the final kind of thing, and then I want to open it up for discussion, you know, in leadership, there's no perfect leader. You know, leadership is a journey. So I'm sure there are my own personal leadership flaws that I can learn from and grow from. So I guess a great segue would be, in this this pandemic that we're in right now, how are you leading your teams? You know, what tidbits can you offer to those of us on this call of how we can inspire our teams remotely?
Well,
This is
Kat here. Oh, sorry.
All right.
Who's diving in?
This is Jamie from the State College of Florida. One of the things that's been of most importance is having very open communications with the team, but also as individuals, letting them know that there's a lot of unknowns, and letting them know that even with the unknown, we can be flexible. So, and it's just acknowledging that each of us in the remote environment have strengths and opportunities. Some of my team has done really well working remotely, and other team members not so well. So as a team, we've worked together to help optimize one's strengths versus another's opportunities, and just really acknowledge that as a team, so that together as a team we could hold each other up and keep moving forward. And honestly, it's just one day at a time is what you do, because being remote in some of this scenario, a lot of work has built up, but at the same time we celebrate the achievements we're able to make, just even if it's small.
Very nice.
I just would add that it's very important to be clear in our communications, because we're not, you know, face to face. And so my background is in project management, and so I've kind of been doing this for a while, so it doesn't bother me as much. But the one thing that I know that I always need to work on is I tend to be very summarized in my communication. And when working in this type of environment, I need to make sure that people are understanding what I'm trying to say. And anytime I ask my wife, "Did you understand me?" she'll say, "Did you explain yourself?" And so I have to use that wisdom and make sure that I explain myself clearly so that everybody on the team can understand what we're trying to do.
I would dovetail on what Jamie and what the other gentleman said, is being transparent with the employees and the team, and also allowing them to share what their fears are about what's going on within the company. So just having that open communication and hearing and actually listening, or listening and actually hearing what they're saying and responding in kind. And then what Jamie said, we actually put teams together for strengths and weaknesses, so that we made it an opportunity to grow skill sets. So cross training if anybody wanted to do that, but to help them and then have that person coach them through whatever process. So I guess team growth skill set.
Sharon?
I think one of the things we struggled with was that people's reaction to the situation changes daily. And we had to find a way that they could communicate that to us easily without feeling any pressure. So we would just be asking, okay, are you red, orange, or green today? And you know, the red was, today I'm like, really, I don't want to go out anywhere. I don't want to do anything. Orange was, I'm kind of okay. And green was, no, I really want to go and I really want to grow my business. And so that was an easy way for them to communicate. And we have just been on the phones to our agents, calling them, making sure they're okay, making sure the families are okay, and having a lot of Zoom meetings, obviously. And it's been that constant communication that has kept them together, I think.
I think that at KB, we are doing lots of Zoom meetings. Of course, we're doing twice a week. We have a shareholder meeting. I have meetings with my team twice a week. I know other teams are doing the same, kind of at a smaller level. There's games going on. We have happy hour Zooms. Anything we can do, lunch Zooms, bingo Zooms, thanks to Bethany, who's on the call with us. We do lots of stuff just to change it up. You know, we're sending home a birthday cookie, as we normally, you know, would get those in the office, birthday cake once a month. So anything we can do right now to connect with our employees, because, you know, in this pandemic, everything is so different. So anything we can do to keep those relationships kind of open and lots of communication. So I think one of the final things there's many things about leadership in his book, but he says in his book, you know, great leaders create strong company culture, and that's where everyone is working towards the same goal. So they inspire the employees to believe and pursue the why instead of just the what. So an inspired team would have, you know, space where you can create and innovate and come up with new ideas. You're going to persist through failures, and there's going to be a lot of hard work. There's trust among the team members, and there's trust in the leadership. So that's what an inspired team may look like. But I think now is a good time to kind of bring it back to small businesses, because a lot of us, you know, he had some great examples of Apple and Microsoft all throughout the book. But I do still think you can kind of bring it back to the small business, you know, so there's still a lot of application. One of the reasons later in the book, he says there's so many reasons why small businesses fail, and it's because the passion alone cannot cut it. So for passion to survive, it needs structure. So you might have a great why, but without the hows, there's a lot of possibility for failure. So that's why that special relationship between the why guys and the how guys, really it needs to be there. And then you got to bring in the what. You know, if that's where it's going to happen at, you got to bring all three together. All three got to stay in balance to kind of make it to avoid failure. In the startups, he talked about the startups, and I think in startups we can all relate to this. You know, you have a couple people getting together and creating a company, and they have a big, huge belief in why. They know their purpose. And hopefully this is going to sustain their employees, you know, give their employees hope through the ups and downs. I also think there's probably, you know, some negative stuff from that people might say, well, this book only applies to bigger businesses. And one of the examples I read was, you know, he wants you to go out and tell people why you're in business. Well, he says that over and over and over. But the example that's given is the bankers that I deal with, or other people deal with, you know, realtors, etc. They don't really care about your why. They care about the product that you can give them and what you can do for them. And that's probably pretty accurate. They don't care. They know, you know, what can you do? What's the product you can provide? But I think as a company, you have to know your why has to be clear, because you have to know, well, what customers are you going after? How are you going to deliver your products or services? Everything has to be back to that clear focus on why to achieve this. And another good example in the book I thought was, we all know about two companies that will come and merge together, and often they'll fail, or one company, you know, kind of takes over. And this is often because, you know, the companies will see each other and say, oh, we see the value. We see that, oh, we can help your clients. We can, you know, make lots of money. but their why, their culture doesn't mesh. So that also becomes another reason why businesses may fail. So I want to get to another polling question and another example in his book, and it is the school bus test. So we probably all know what this is about. So if the leader of your company gets hit by a bus, would the organization continue to thrive at the same pace without them at the helm? So to pass the test, why? So to pass this test, obviously, the why must be extracted and integrated into the company culture. So the poll test is open. Would your company pass the school bus test?
I'm glad these are anonymous.
Good point. All right. So it looks like 86% of us believe that our companies would pass the school bus test. So kind of opening that up. So for us to pass the school bus test, obviously a strong succession plan must be in place. And if you have a succession plan, you have to be out and ready to find the next leader that is ready, that believes in the cause and is ready to lead the next generation. So the future leaders and employees alike must be inspired by something bigger than the personality of the founder. And they've got to see beyond profits, because that's a what, that's just a result. That's not the why you're in business. So I think now's a good time to kind of open up to discussion of, how do you prepare to pass the school bus test, or what do you see happening in your companies to prepare future leaders? Or are your companies going to be looking outside of the company to bring someone in? Any comments there?
I know Matt's back on. He had to step off for a minute, but he's back on. But I know that we've had a hard time when in past experiences of bringing people from the outside in to lead, because we've really developed our culture within our company, and sometimes it's really hard to understand if you come from the outside, and especially if you come from a corporate scenario coming into a family-owned and operated business that's a little bit more nimble. So I don't know if Matt has anything to add to that, but we've had a hard time with that scenario in our company.
So Emily, kind of a question back to you. Do you feel that there's a strong succession plan in place, or one that's being worked on?
Matt can answer that one.
Uh-oh.
It's perfect.
All right.
And you see how everybody laughs because they know it's not. It's a work in progress. Let's put it that way. The problem is there's this old guy that just will not let go.
Well, it's interesting because I think the why in that core is very strong. But I think sometimes as you move out, the generations interpret the how a little bit differently. So I don't know that you move away from your why, but sometimes the how changes because it's different from a generational perspective as well. So it is an interesting conundrum.
Well, and if this is Mark Gordon with the Observer Media Group, but if you look at, maybe Sharon can weigh in on this, look at the example of Michael Saunders. I mean, Michael's been grooming Drayton for a very long time to take that over. My point is that I think it takes a long time to do this, to build up that rapport and get that going. You can't just do it very quickly.
Yeah, and I think with Michael, like any other great entrepreneur, there is a danger that if the entrepreneur goes, what happens to the company? It's a bit like Richard Branson with Virgin. What's going to happen to Virgin when Richard Branson eventually keels over? So Drayton's been with the company now, I think, for 18 years. And Michael started him off, training. And he managed several offices. He got to know the business from the ground up. And I think that's really important if you're bringing somebody in who will eventually be the figurehead. that they get to know everybody, they get to know the nitty-gritty. Because I've worked for companies where the CEO has changed and the company's just changed completely because the CEO doesn't have a buy-in to that why. So I'm really pleased to be with an organisation that actually Drayton not only is Michael's son, but he is really her heir to everything that she's put into this company. And he is quite phenomenal, and he's actually making his own place within the industry, which I think again is difficult when you have got a very, very visible entrepreneur. So, you know, hard act to follow, big shoes to fill, but I think if they work together, they can do it.
Thank you, Sharon. I put up the slide so you guys could see how he correlates the why, the how, and the what. He says the golden circle is really a dome. So the whys, you know, they have a down, they're looking all down and looking back up. So you can see how they're all connected. You know, that this is definitely the hierarchy, but if they're not all connected, it's not going to work. So I kind of felt like you talked on that a little bit. He probably started at the what, he got to the how, and now he's groomed for the why. So I think that's important. All right.
I struggle a little bit with that slide because it also has to be my why. And so, yeah, the leader kind of sets the why, but at the end, everybody in the company has to see it as their own why. And so it's almost like when you're planning your strategy, you know, at the end, you need to, it's got to be a very collaborative process. Yes, there's a person who's kind of leading it, but at the end, everybody should feel like it's their own why. But I get what he's trying to say though with it.
Yeah. Orlando, that's something I think about too in terms of how do you know, once, you know, if you know what your why is, that's great, but how do you keep that kind of top of mind every day as you're moving through the tasks you have to do to get the job done? How do you keep that, you know, front and center?
Yeah, and I definitely think the key here is you've got to continue to inspire those around you, and they have to be passionate and kind of want to get on that bandwagon with you and build your business, or whatever you're seeking from a professional standpoint. He also, we won't have enough time, but he also talked about the split. So when these, if your leader gets hit by a bus, or if the leader retires, kind of what happens to the company and how they flounder. And there's some examples throughout the book that really kind of drive down on that. In his book summaries, one of the questions, you know, he uses Apple a ton, and this book was written in 2009. So, and one of the book summaries he did here in 2020, he's been asked, hey, will you do an anniversary, update this book, do an anniversary, book, or write, to kind of how has things changed since 2009? So he was asked in this book review, do you feel that Apple has lost their why? And so, everybody has their opinion, but his opinion was, Apple definitely has some cracks in their armor. The company now is more concerned with short-term profits than probably innovation. And in terms of innovation right now, even though I think Apple is still a leader, they're playing catch up. It's just not the same as it's used to be. And he said, they haven't completely abandoned their cause. They just may not be as obsessed on it as they have in the past. So I think in the past, his example said that he gave the team, the bandwidth to innovate and to be, that was their why, to innovate, to bring the best products to market. And in this interview, he said recently, well, look at Google's, look at this, look at, he pointed to some other technology products out there that are leaving Apple in the dust. So I thought that was pretty interesting. He, in the interview, kind of 2020 interview of Simon Sinek, he says, someone asked, what are the companies that today, right now, that start with why? And I found that pretty interesting. He named a few companies, Airbnb, and their why is all about connecting people. The Cliff Bar is another company that starts with why. And he's worked with them, and he's very inspired by their leaders that kind of run their company starting with why. Sweetgreen is another company that is a really good example of a company that starts with why. And he's saying that here, the founders of this company, they're purpose driven. They want to provide fresh food within their communities. And so they're going to source their food from local farms, even if they don't make the same profit or margin. So, those companies are, they're focused on their why. So I thought those were pretty interesting. He said at the end of the day, the companies that we have warm feelings for, those are probably the companies that are focused on their why. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I'd be curious to know from the folks on the call whether there are any companies that you are very loyal to because they start with their why. Are there any companies that you are consistently going back to over and over again because that why is really apparent to you? Maybe not.
Let's see here.
I would say Publix.
Yeah.
I feel treated very well there. Yeah.
It's funny how little changes make a shift in your perception of that. Like, I have to say, I agree on Publix, but the minute they put in the self-checkout things, I was like, this is not a Publix why. I was really shocked that they did that, It seemed not in line with what they believe in, so.
I was going to say there's I don't know if they're up there. I live in Naples, Florida, and the store here is Sprouts. It's just a smaller grocery store, but the quality of the product and service is great. And every time I travel back home to Milwaukee, there's a place called Greeby's Bakery. It's been there it's in the third generation of ownership, and the quality. I have a sweet tooth, so the quality of the baked goods is incredible. And every time I'm there, I have to go there just to get a Greeby's crawler or a donut or a Long John or something. And everybody goes, "You went there again?" I said, "Oh yeah, I go there, I buy it, and I'll try to take it home every now and then." So it's like I say, it's something that they've obviously figured out the why, and it still feels like a small family-owned business, and yet they sell their product to grocery stores all across the Midwest. So.
You can tell it's dinner time. Everybody's talking about their grocery stores. Kat, I wanted to say, though, I think you brought up a point, and it kind of talks about the why, is that also some of the whys are if there is a change. You look at all the businesses that catered to pickup or drive-by or whatever through COVID, and their whys had shifted because of the shift in the needs. So I think that to your question, Greer, I would look to the companies that are paying attention to the shifting needs of me as their consumer.
Good point.
All right, so to kind of bring this home, a couple things I think to take away here. One of the big things, when you're saying start with why, is, so many of us, and I'm not, I do this too. When we introduce ourselves or we talk about our value, we'll often say, "Oh, I went to this school, I have this education, this experience." One of the, he said, he kind of goes back to the golden circle. You've got to go back to your golden circle in the order that you share information. So companies, if they're selling or, services, they can go find out all that service, experience, etc. They probably could find out some of who your clients are. But he said, the best stories are going to be personal stories. Why did you get into accounting? Why did you become a kid's football coach? If you can share examples or why you want to do this for them, that's going to be so much more authentic than just, "Hey, I'm a CPA. I've been doing this for so many years. Let me help you do your taxes." Okay. So, whereas, if I share the fact that my parents had family-owned restaurants and I wanted to get far away as possible, but I wanted to be on the other side to be able to help them with their numbers, then that might be more, something that would be relatable. Practical application, I think, of some of his principles really are behavior is going to reinforce the why. You have to be authentic. You have to know your why. And you really need to align your decisions and all of your actions and your communications with your why. And that's tough. I mean, you got to constantly have it there in front of you. Your guiding principles need to be focused and meaningful, and not just, you know, you've got to have action behind those guiding principles. And the last thing I really liked was ignore the competition. Just focus on your why and be better than you were yesterday. And I think that's great. I mean, be in competition with yourself, not with others, and there'll be others there to help lift you up. And then I think, you know, consistency in your purpose, leadership, those are important. But finally, I think someone asked about it. How do you keep this, how do you keep your why on track? What do you do when your why goes fuzzy? I think that's important. So it's, you know, be accountable. When you're off your game, ask for help, you know, and guard against anything making that why fuzzy, and remind yourself of your why all the time. So if that means, you know, he uses his color orange as his reminding himself he wants to inspire, you know, put sticky notes. I know I have quotes on my desk that I look at every day. Anything you can do to see it every day. I think I need to add one to the car. Pay attention when things get out of balance. So if you get out of balance, you know, kind of bring that back into circle, so, you know, into balance. I thought one of the best leadership quotes he ended with a leader's job is not to do the work of others. It's to help others figure out how to do it themselves, to get things done and to succeed beyond what they ever thought possible. So leaders are all about bringing those around them up. And I think that's a hard task to do, but it's something that a leader is going to embrace. So it is 5 o'clock. Greer?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Heather, and thank you all for your wonderful comments and additions to the discussion, and for your virtual applause. So thanks so much for joining us at Open Book, our second Open Book Club gathering. And we'd like to also invite you to visit the Business Observer website, which is businessobserverfl.com, and sign up for our daily headlines email newsletter and subscribe to our print edition. And we hope to see you also at our next book club on November 4th. So please mark your calendars for that. Thanks again for joining us. Hope you all have a good night. Thanks again, Heather, and thank you all for being here.
Great job, Heather. Great preparation. You did a lot of work, obviously.
Great job.
Great job.